The summer heat in Page, Arizona is unforgiving. As temperatures regularly climb above 100 degrees, the landscape shimmers with an otherworldly glow. The undulating sandstone formations of Antelope Canyon cast long shadows across the desert floor, their orange and red hues deepening as the sun begins its descent. It's a place of breathtaking beauty, where light beams pierce through narrow openings in the slot canyon, creating ethereal spotlights on the smooth, flowing rock walls below. Tourists from around the world flock here, cameras ready, hoping to capture the perfect shot of nature's artistry. But on June 17, 2013, this natural wonder became the backdrop for a mystery that would haunt the small community of Page for years to come. 17-year-old Lily Hartman had always been drawn to adventure. Her Instagram feed was a testament to her love of the outdoors, hiking trails in nearby Grand Canyon National Park, camping under star-filled skies, and exploring the hidden gems of the American Southwest. She was preparing to enter her senior year at Page High School, with dreams of studying geology at Northern Arizona University after graduation. Friends described her as confident, independent, and always seeking the next thrill. She was never afraid to go off the beaten path, her photography teacher would later tell investigators. She had an eye for capturing moments others would miss. This innate curiosity, this desire to see what lay beyond the next bend, may have been what led Lily to venture into Upper Antelope Canyon alone that fateful Monday morning. Or perhaps there were other forces at play, forces that would remain shrouded in mystery for the next 7 years. What we know for certain is that Lily left her family's modest 2-story home on North Navajo Drive at approximately 6:30 a.m. Dressed in hiking boots, denim shorts, and a light blue tank top. A small black JanSport backpack was slung over her shoulder, containing a water bottle, her Canon DSLR camera, and a small sketchbook. Her mother, Catherine Hartman, was still asleep when Lily departed, leaving only a hastily scribbled note on the kitchen counter. Gone to capture morning light at the canyon. Back by lunch. Love you. Catherine found the note when she woke at 7:45 a.m. There was nothing unusual about it. Lily often rose early during summer break to photograph the landscape before tourist crowds arrived. The only peculiarity, in retrospect, was that Lily hadn't specified which canyon she planned to visit. Page was surrounded by them: Antelope, Glen, Horseshoe Bend, and numerous others. But Catherine assumed her daughter meant Antelope, as Lily had been talking about photographing the light beams there for weeks. By 2:30 p.m., when Lily still hadn't returned or answered text messages, Catherine's concern began to mount. She called several of Lily's friends, none of whom had heard from her that day. At 4:12 p.m., Catherine contacted the Page Police Department to report her daughter missing. Officer Michael Trent was the first to respond to the call. In his initial report, he noted that Catherine was visibly distressed but composed, and that there was no immediate indication of foul play. Standard protocol was followed, descriptions of Lily were distributed, her friends and known acquaintances were contacted, and a search of the family home was conducted. Nothing seemed out of place. Her laptop revealed no concerning communications, and her most recent browser history showed only searches related to best time to photograph Antelope Canyon and avoiding crowds at slot canyons. By nightfall, with Lily still unaccounted for, the search expanded. Officer Trent contacted the Navajo Nation Police Department, as Upper Antelope Canyon lies within Navajo Nation land. Together with Coconino County Sheriff's Department, they organized a search party to comb through the main tourist areas of the canyon. Lily's photograph was distributed to tour guides and local businesses. The first concrete lead came at 9:17 p.m., when Jason Begay, a tour guide for Antelope Canyon Navajo Tours, confirmed that he had seen someone matching Lily's description early that morning. She was there when I arrived to open up around 7:15, Begay told detectives. Standing near the entrance, looking at a map, I asked if she was waiting for a tour, and she said no, that she just wanted to take some photos before it got busy. I told her she couldn't go in without a guide. It's strict policy. She seemed disappointed but thanked me anyway. Begay's account was corroborated by security camera footage from the tour company's small office, which showed Lily approaching the canyon entrance at 7:08 a.m. and leaving the immediate area at 7:23 a.m. She appeared to be alone and showed no signs of distress. This information narrowed the search perimeter, but raised a troubling question. If Lily had been turned away from the official entrance to Antelope Canyon, where had she gone afterward? By dawn on June 18, a full-scale search and rescue operation was underway. Helicopter surveys, ground teams with search dogs, and volunteers from the community fanned out across the desert landscape surrounding Page. The first day of searching yielded nothing: no footprints, no personal belongings, no indication of where Lily might have gone after leaving the tour office. As news of the disappearance spread, locals and tourists alike joined the effort. Flyers with Lily's face appeared in shop windows throughout Page and neighboring communities. Local news stations carried the story, and social media campaigns urged anyone with information to come forward. 3 days into the search, on June 20, a significant breakthrough occurred. 2 hikers discovered Lily's black JanSport backpack, approximately 2.3 miles southeast of the official entrance to Upper Antelope Canyon, in an area known locally as Echo Pass, a less trafficked region with several smaller slot canyons that didn't appear on tourist maps. The backpack contained Lily's water bottle, 3/4 empty, her sketchbook, and a few granola bar wrappers. Conspicuously absent was her Canon camera. Inside the sketchbook, investigators found detailed drawings of rock formations and light patterns, along with notes about camera settings and optimal shooting angles. The final entry, dated June 17, read, "Found it. The perfect spot. Hidden entrance near Echo. Need to come back with more water and proper gear." This discovery shifted the focus of the search to the Echo Pass area, a maze-like network of narrow sandstone corridors and unmarked slot canyons. It was terrain that even experienced hikers approached with caution, particularly during monsoon season, when flash floods could surge through the narrow passages without warning, carrying walls of water, debris, and sediment powerful enough to sweep away anything in their path. Weather records showed no rainfall in the area on June 17, making a flash flood unlikely. However, the labyrinthine nature of the landscape meant that someone unfamiliar with its twists and turns could easily become disoriented, especially in the heat of an Arizona summer day. Search teams combed the Echo Pass area for the next week, utilizing drones to survey inaccessible sections and bringing in specialists with experience navigating slot canyons. Native trackers from the Navajo Nation joined the effort, lending their expertise in reading the subtle signs of human passage across the desert landscape. As days stretched into weeks, with no further signs of Lily, the official search began to wind down. By July 8, 2013, 3 weeks after her disappearance, the operation transitioned from rescue to recovery. The prevailing theory among law enforcement was that Lily had attempted to enter one of the unmapped slot canyons in the Echo Pass area, become lost or trapped, and succumbed to dehydration or injury. Catherine Hartman refused to accept this conclusion. "My daughter knew these canyons," she insisted during a press conference on July 12. "She researched everything thoroughly. She wouldn't have just wandered in unprepared." Catherine's eyes, red-rimmed from weeks of grief and sleepless nights, stared directly into the cameras. "Someone knows something. Please, if you saw Lily that day, if you have any information at all, come forward." The Hartman family offered a $50,000 reward for information leading to Lily's whereabouts. The money had been raised through community donations and a GoFundMe campaign that went viral after being shared by several high-profile outdoor photographers who had been moved by the story of the young aspiring photographer. As summer turned to fall, the case began to fade from headlines. Local law enforcement maintained an open investigation, but active leads had dried up. Catherine Hartman continued her own search, hiking the Echo Pass area every weekend, placing laminated photos of Lily at trailheads and visitor centers. In October 2013, an unexpected development briefly reignited public interest in the case. A pawn shop owner in Flagstaff, Arizona, approximately 30 miles south of Page, reported that someone had tried to sell a Canon DSLR camera, matching the description of Lily's. The transaction had been refused because the seller couldn't provide proof of ownership, and the shop's security cameras had captured clear images of the individual, a man in his mid-30s with distinctive sleeve tattoos and a scar across his left cheek. Detectives identified the man as Roy Whitehorse, a 36-year-old with a history of petty theft and drug-related offenses. When questioned, Whitehorse claimed he had found the camera in a pile of stuff at a flea market outside of Tuba City on the Navajo Nation. He couldn't or wouldn't provide details about the seller, and investigators found no evidence directly linking him to Lily's disappearance. The camera, which was confirmed to be Lily's based on serial number records, contained no memory card, another puzzling detail in an increasingly complex case. By the one-year anniversary of Lily's disappearance in June 2014, the investigation had reached an impasse. The prevailing theories fell into three categories. First, that Lily had accidentally entered a dangerous area of the Slot Canyons and met with misfortune, perhaps falling into a deep crevice, becoming trapped in a tight passage, or succumbing to the elements in an area that searchers had been unable to access. Second, that Lily had encountered foul play, potentially meeting someone who had followed her into the remote area or stumbling upon illegal activity in the isolated canyon network. Third, the least likely but still considered possibility, that Lily had staged her own disappearance and started a new life elsewhere, though this theory was undermined by the fact that her passport remained at home. Her bank account showed no unusual withdrawals prior to her disappearance, and she had made extensive plans for her senior year of high school. For 3 more years, the case remained open but inactive. Catherine Hartman moved away from Page in 2016, unable to bear the constant reminders of her daughter's absence. She relocated to Prescott, Arizona, but maintained regular contact with the Page Police Department, calling on the 17th of each month for updates that rarely came. Then, in August 2017, a new detective was assigned to the cold case unit in Coconino County. Detective Eliza Washburn, a 15-year veteran with a reputation for meticulous attention to detail, began reviewing all files related to Lily's disappearance. She re-interviewed witnesses, re-examined evidence, and personally hiked the area where Lily's backpack had been found. There was something about the Echo Pass detail that never sat right with me, Washburn would later explain in her case notes. If Lily was turned away from the official entrance to Antelope Canyon, how did she know about this obscure area that wasn't on tourist maps? And why was her final sketchbook entry so specific about a hidden entrance she had found? Washburn's investigation led her to review Lily's social media history more carefully than had been done previously. On an old Flickr account that hadn't been active since 2012, Washburn discovered a series of comments exchanged between Lily and an account under the name Desert Light Seeker. The exchanges, spanning several months, centered around photography techniques, with increasing focus on undiscovered locations for capturing unique images of the Southwest landscape. The final message from Desert Light Seeker, dated June 12, 2013. 5 days before Lily's disappearance, read, "The place I told you about near Echo. Dawn light perfect this time of year. No tourists, no guides, just pure canyon. Worth the risk for the right shot." Lily's response, "Sounds perfect. How exactly do I find it?" To which Desert Light Seeker replied, "GPS won't help. I will send details privately." Attempts to trace the Desert Light Seeker account led nowhere. It had been created using a temporary email address and accessed through various public Wi-Fi networks around the Four Corners region. The account had been abandoned immediately after that final exchange with Lily. This discovery painted the case in an entirely new light. It suggested that Lily's journey to Echo Pass hadn't been a random deviation after being turned away from Antelope Canyon, but rather a planned destination based on information from someone who had deliberately covered their digital tracks. Detective Washburn presented these findings to her superiors and was granted resources to reopen the active investigation. A forensic analysis of Lily's recovered camera revealed minute traces of an unusual red clay, not typically found in the immediate Antelope Canyon area, but more consistent with formations approximately 5 miles east. This narrowed the search area further. In November 2017, Washburn organized a new search operation, focusing on previously unexplored slot canyons in the eastern section of Echo Pass. Using advanced drone technology that hadn't been available during the initial search, the team was able to create detailed 3D maps of narrow passages that human searchers couldn't access. It was one of these drones that captured the first images of what appeared to be human remains, wedged in a crevice approximately 40 feet below the surface of a particularly narrow slot canyon locally known as Whispering Wind. The position and inaccessibility of the site explained why previous search efforts had failed to locate it. The remains were visible only from directly above, in a shadowed area that received minimal sunlight. A specialized recovery team from the Coconino County Search and Rescue Unit was dispatched to the location. The extraction process was painstaking, requiring technical climbing equipment and careful documentation of the scene. What they recovered were the partial skeletal remains of a young female, along with deteriorated fragments of clothing consistent with what Lily had been wearing on the day of her disappearance. Dental records confirmed what Catherine Hartman had both feared and suspected for over 4 years. The remains were those of her daughter Lily, but the discovery of Lily's remains raised as many questions as it answered. The medical examiner's preliminary report noted several inconsistencies that troubled investigators. First, the position of the body was unusual, wedged into a crevice in a way that seemed unlikely to have occurred from a simple fall. Second, and more significantly, there were fractures to the skull and cervical vertebrae that appeared to have occurred perimortem around the time of death, with patterns more consistent with blunt force trauma than impact from a fall. Most puzzling of all was the discovery of a small metal object, clutched within the skeletal remains of Lily's right hand, a memory card from a digital camera, protected from the elements by its position within the crevice and the natural mummification process that had occurred in the dried desert air. When forensic technicians managed to recover data from the memory card, what they found sent shockwaves through the investigation team. The final images, captured on June 17, 2013, showed a series of photographs taken from inside a slot canyon, presumably the one where Lily's remains were discovered. The images progressed from early morning shots of light beams piercing the narrow openings above, to more hurried, less composed frames that suggested Lily had begun moving quickly through the canyon. The final 3 photographs were the most disturbing. Taken in rapid succession, they showed a partial view of a figure at the far end of the narrow passage, someone wearing dark clothing, face obscured by shadow, appearing to move toward the camera. The last image was blurry, as if taken while Lily was in motion, perhaps turning to run. These photographs transformed what had been presumed to be a tragic accident into a potential homicide investigation. They suggested that Lily had not been alone in that remote canyon, that someone had been there with her, or had followed her into its depths, someone who, perhaps, had lured her there specifically. Detective Washburn immediately expanded the investigation, revisiting the mysterious Desert Light Seeker and their exchanges with Lily. A task force was formed, bringing together detectives from Page Police Department, Coconino County Sheriff's Office, and the FBI's Flagstaff Field Office. As news of the discovery spread, other pieces of the puzzle began to emerge. A former tour guide came forward with information about rumors of unauthorized extreme photography tours that had operated in the area during 2012-2013 guides, who would take amateur photographers to restricted areas of the canyon network for the right price. These unofficial tours had allegedly stopped after Lily's disappearance and the increased law enforcement presence that followed. Another witness, a hiker who had been in the area the weekend before Lily's disappearance, reported seeing a man photographing the entrance to one of the unmapped slot canyons. He had thought nothing of it at the time but remembered the encounter because the man had seemed startled by his presence and quickly packed up his equipment. He was a white guy, maybe early 40s, with a professional-looking camera setup, the witness told investigators. What struck me as odd was that he had a topographical map spread out on the hood of his Jeep, marking something with a red pen. When he saw me approaching on the trail, he folded it up real quick and acted like he was just taking a water break. The witness's description was vague but provided enough detail for a police sketch artist to create a composite. The resulting image was distributed to local media outlets and law enforcement agencies throughout the Southwest. 3 days after the sketch was released, a park ranger at Capitol Reef National Park in Utah recognized the face. The man had been a regular visitor to several national parks in the region between 2011 and 2014, often conducting what he claimed were landscape photography workshops for small groups of enthusiasts. The ranger had interacted with him several times and recalled his name as Edward Mercer. Background checks revealed that Edward Mercer, 44, had a clean criminal record but a troubled past. A former high school photography teacher in Denver, Colorado, he had resigned his position in 2010 following unsubstantiated allegations of inappropriate behavior with female students. No charges had ever been filed, but the school board had accepted his resignation without protest. After leaving teaching, Mercer had apparently reinvented himself as a freelance photography guide, operating primarily in the Southwest. His digital footprint was minimal, no active social media accounts under his real name, no professional website. His last known address was a month-to-month rental in Moab, Utah, which had been vacated in early 2015. Financial records showed no credit card usage or tax filings since then. As detectives dug deeper into Mercer's history, disturbing patterns began to emerge. 3 other young women, all between the ages of 16 and 21, all aspiring photographers, had reported uncomfortable encounters with a photography guide matching Mercer's description at various remote locations across Arizona, Utah, and Colorado between 20. None had filed formal complaints, but in retrospect, each described similar experiences. Initial contact through photography forums or Flickr, suggestions of secret locations for unique shots, and increasingly personal communications that had prompted them to break contact. One of these women, Emily Turner, had saved emails from a Ted Mercer, who had offered to show her hidden slot canyons that only locals know about after seeing her landscape photography online. The email contained language strikingly similar to the Desert Light Seeker messages sent to Lily. He told me there was this perfect spot in a canyon near Page, where the light does something special for just a few weeks each year. Turner told detectives, said, if I was serious about photography, I needed to see it. When I asked if we could go with a group, he got weird about it, said too many people would ruin the experience, and the spot needed to stay secret. That's when alarm bells went off for me. Turner had blocked further communications and forgotten about the incident until seeing the police sketch on the news. By December 2017, Edward Mercer had been named a person of interest in Lily Hartman's death. A multi-state manhunt was launched, focusing on remote areas of the Southwest where Mercer had been known to frequent. His photograph appeared on digital billboards across Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. America's Most Wanted featured the case on their website, and true crime podcasts brought renewed attention to the mystery. The winter of 2017-2018 passed with no confirmed sightings of Mercer. Detective Washburn continued to build a case file, methodically connecting dots between Lily's movements, the Desert Light Seeker communications, and Mercer's known activities in the region. The breakthrough came not from the manhunt but from a routine traffic stop in Taos, New Mexico, in March 2018. A county deputy pulled over a weathered Jeep Cherokee with expired Colorado plates for a broken taillight. The driver presented an Arizona driver's license under the name Thomas Edwards. Something about the man's nervous behavior prompted the deputy to run a more thorough check, revealing that the license was fraudulent. The man was detained, and fingerprint verification confirmed his identity as Edward Mercer. A search of Mercer's Jeep yielded a trove of evidence: high-end photography equipment, detailed topographical maps of remote areas across the Southwest with locations marked in red, a collection of flash drives containing thousands of images of young women photographed in wilderness settings, many apparently unaware they were being photographed, and most damning of all, a small leather pouch containing 3 memory cards from various digital cameras, and a silver pendant with the initials LH that Catherine Hartman positively identified as belonging to her daughter. Mercer was extradited to Arizona to face charges related to Lily's death. As investigators prepared their case, a disturbing theory emerged that Mercer had potentially been using his knowledge of remote, unmapped locations to target young female photographers for years, presenting himself as a mentor figure who could provide access to exclusive natural wonders in exchange for their trust. In Lily's case, this trust had led her to a hidden slot canyon far from marked trails and tourist areas, a perfect location for whatever Mercer had planned. The final photographs on her memory card suggested that she had realized too late the danger she was in. As spring turned to summer in 2018, 5 years after Lily's disappearance, prosecutors prepared to bring charges of first-degree murder against Edward Mercer. The evidence, while largely circumstantial, painted a compelling picture. The Desert Light Seeker communications, the witness sightings, the items found in Mercer's possession, and the forensic analysis of Lily's remains all pointed toward his guilt. But on the morning of June 17, 2018, exactly 5 years to the day after Lily vanished, an unexpected development would once again alter the course of the investigation. Catherine Hartman, who had returned to Page for the anniversary of her daughter's disappearance, received an anonymous package at her hotel. Inside was a USB drive containing a single video file and a handwritten note that read simply, "The truth about Lily." The video, timestamped June 17, 2013, appeared to have been recorded on a cell phone. It showed Lily Hartman alive, standing at the entrance to a narrow slot canyon, camera in hand, speaking to someone off-screen. Her expression was a mixture of excitement and uncertainty as she gestured toward the canyon opening. The audio was faint but clear enough to make out her words. "Are you sure this is legal? I don't want to get in trouble." A male voice, presumably belonging to the person recording, responded, "Absolutely. I have special permission from the Navajo Nation. Been coming here for years." The video continued as Lily entered the canyon, the person recording following several paces behind. The footage was shaky but showed their progress through increasingly narrow passages, with Lily stopping occasionally to set up shots with her Canon. Approximately 7 minutes into the recording, Lily paused, looking upward. "Did you hear that?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. The male voice replied, "Probably just the wind. These canyons make all kinds of strange sounds." But Lily appeared unsettled. "No, it sounded like voices. Maybe we should head back." "We are almost to the best spot," the male voice insisted. "Just around this next bend. You will get the shot of a lifetime, I promise." The video continued for another minute as they navigated a particularly tight passage. Then, abruptly, multiple voices could be heard echoing through the canyon. Lily turned toward the camera, her expression now alarmed. "You said no one else would be here," she said accusingly. The camera movement became erratic, and a brief glimpse of the sky above the canyon was visible before the recording ended abruptly. Catherine Hartman immediately turned the USB drive over to Detective Washburn. Forensic analysis confirmed its authenticity. The video had indeed been recorded on June 17, 2013, and had not been altered or edited. The male voice, while never clearly visible in the frame, was confirmed through audio analysis to match that of Edward Mercer. But the presence of additional voices that had clearly frightened Lily, introduced a new element to the case. Who else had been in that remote canyon on the day Lily disappeared? And why had this video surfaced now, 5 years later, on the anniversary of her disappearance? As detectives grappled with these questions, another shocking development occurred. Edward Mercer, awaiting trial in the Coconino County Detention Center, was found unresponsive in his cell, an apparent suicide by hanging. A note found in his possession read only, "I never meant for her to die." His death left investigators with more questions than answers. Had Mercer acted alone in whatever transpired in that canyon, or had others been involved? Was his suicide an admission of guilt or something else entirely? And who had sent the video to Catherine Hartman after 5 years of silence? The case that had seemed on the verge of resolution had suddenly become more complex than ever. As summer turned to fall in 2018, Detective Washburn continued to follow every lead, determined to uncover the full truth about what had happened to Lily Hartman in that remote slot canyon on a summer morning 5 years earlier. But some questions would remain unanswered, some voices unidentified, and some shadows undispelled, at least for now. In the winding passages of Arizona's slot canyons, as in the labyrinthine course of this investigation, not all paths lead to light. Fall descended on Page, Arizona, bringing with it cooler temperatures and longer shadows across the desert landscape. The slot canyons took on new dimensions as the shifting seasonal light painted their sandstone walls in deeper reds and purples. Tourists still flocked to Antelope Canyon, many unaware that just miles away, in a remote section of Echo Pass, a young woman's life had ended violently 5 years earlier. In the wake of Edward Mercer's suicide, the investigation into Lily Hartman's death had reached a critical juncture. Detective Eliza Washburn found herself standing at a crossroads of competing theories, conflicting evidence, and unanswered questions. The discovery of the cell phone video delivered anonymously to Catherine Hartman on the 5th anniversary of her daughter's disappearance had fundamentally altered the trajectory of the case. "We are looking at multiple actors now," Washburn explained during an October 2018 briefing at the Coconino County Sheriff's Office. The video confirms Mercer's presence with Lily in the canyon, but it also indicates others were there. The question is, who were they, and what role did they play in Lily's death? Forensic analysis of the video had yielded frustratingly little. The voices heard in the distance were too faint and distorted by the canyon's natural acoustics to be clearly identified or isolated. Enhancement techniques revealed only that there were at least 2 additional individuals, one male, one likely female, but their words remained indecipherable. The USB drive itself was a common model available at any electronics store, wiped clean of fingerprints and digital metadata beyond the video file itself. The handwritten note accompanying it, "The Truth About Lily," had been analyzed by forensic document examiners, who determined it had been written with a common ballpoint pen on standard printer paper. The handwriting didn't match Mercer's samples, suggesting a third party had sent the package. As for Mercer's suicide note, "I never meant for her to die," it raised more questions than it answered. Was it a confession to an accidental killing? An admission that he had lured Lily to the canyon but someone else had caused her death? Or perhaps a statement that he had never intended for the situation to escalate to violence at all? With Mercer dead, the answers died with him. Or so it seemed. In November 2018, a new lead emerged from an unexpected source. A former cellmate of Mercer's at the Coconino County Detention Center came forward with information. Dwayne Holloway, serving time for a series of burglaries across northern Arizona, claimed that Mercer had spoken to him about Lily Hartman in the weeks before his suicide. "He was real nervous all the time," Holloway told investigators during an interview at the detention center. "Kept saying they were going to get to him, even in here. I asked who they were, but he'd just shake his head. One night, though, he was having some kind of nightmare. Woke up shouting something about the photographers and the canyon operation. When I asked him about it the next morning, he just said I should forget what I heard if I knew what was good for me. Holloway's credibility was questionable. He had a history of providing information to authorities in exchange for leniency. But Detective Washburn couldn't dismiss his account entirely. It aligned with a theory she had been developing, that Mercer might have been part of a larger operation using the remote canyons for some illicit purpose. Canyon operation, Washburn muttered, staring at the interview transcript. What kind of operation would be running out of slot canyons in the middle of nowhere? The answer came from an FBI agent attached to the case, Special Agent Thomas Reeves, who specialized in crimes occurring on federal and tribal lands. The location makes perfect sense if you are looking to avoid detection, Reeves explained, spreading a map across Washburn's desk. These unmapped slot canyons are essentially invisible from the air. They cross jurisdictional boundaries between National Park Service land, Navajo Nation territory, and BLM property. Law enforcement presence is minimal. If someone wanted to conduct illegal activities without being discovered, these canyons would be ideal. But what illegal activities? Drug trafficking was an obvious possibility. The remote location could serve as a handoff point for substances moving north from the Mexican border. Another theory involved smuggling of Native American artifacts, a persistent problem in the region where ancient pottery, tools, and even human remains were looted from archaeological sites and sold on the black market. A third possibility arose when Washburn revisited Mercer's background as a photographer. His Jeep had contained not just standard photography equipment, but several items that had initially seemed innocuous, but now took on new significance: multiple high-capacity memory cards, external hard drives with sophisticated encryption, and a satellite internet connection device equipment that would allow for the capture, storage, and transmission of large amounts of data from remote locations. Photography workshops, Washburn said, the pieces clicking into place. That's what he called them. But what if the workshops were just a cover? What if he was using his reputation as a guide to recruit young photographers for something else entirely? The theory gained traction when the FBI conducted a deeper analysis of the images recovered from Mercer's equipment. While many were legitimate landscape photographs, others documented remote canyon entrances, GPS coordinates, and what appeared to be meeting locations, all annotated with dates and times in a coded system. Most disturbing were folders containing surveillance-style photographs of young women at various outdoor locations across the Southwest. None were explicitly inappropriate, but the sheer volume, hundreds of images of dozens of different women, all apparently photographed without their knowledge, painted a picture of obsessive behavior at minimum. Among these photographs were several of Lily Hartman, taken months before her disappearance. In one sequence, she was photographing Horseshoe Bend with friends from her high school photography club. In another, she was alone at a coffee shop in Page, reviewing images on her laptop. The final series showed her hiking near the Echo Pass area in spring 2013, months before she would disappear in that same region. He was stalking her, Catherine Hartman said. Her voice hollow as Detective Washburn showed her the photographs. All those months, he was watching my daughter, planning. It appears so, Washburn confirmed gently. But we believe he may not have been acting alone. The Desert Light Seeker account that communicated with Lily, we have found similar accounts targeting other young photographers across at least 4 states. Too many for one person to manage effectively. A network, Catherine whispered. You are saying there was a network of these predators? Washburn nodded grimly. We are working with the FBI to identify others who may have been involved. Edward Mercer seems to have been one piece of a larger operation, possibly using photography as a cover for something much darker. The case took another turn in January 2019, when FBI technicians finally broke through the encryption on one of Mercer's external hard drives. What they found was evidence of an extensive operation using young photographers, mostly women between 16 and 25, as unwitting participants in what appeared to be an industrial espionage scheme. They were targeting specific locations, Special Agent Reeves explained during a joint briefing with local law enforcement. Natural gas infrastructure, water management systems, electrical substations, communications towers, all critical infrastructure located in remote areas across the Southwest. The photographers were being directed to these locations under the guise of capturing unique landscape shots, but the real purpose was to document security measures, access points, and operational details. Email exchanges recovered from the hard drive revealed communications between Mercer and several individuals using encrypted channels. The language was coded but clearly outlined a systematic effort to build a database of vulnerable infrastructure targets, with payments being made to Mercer for each successful shoot. But how did this connect to Lily Hartman's death in a slot canyon miles from any infrastructure targets? The answer emerged from a seemingly unrelated investigation by the Navajo Nation Environmental Protection Agency. In late 2012 and early 2013, they had been tracking unusual seismic activity in the Echo Pass region, activity consistent with unauthorized prospecting for uranium deposits. Uranium mining has a long and troubled history in the Southwest, particularly on Navajo lands where past extraction had left a legacy of contamination and illness. The Navajo Nation had banned uranium mining on its territory in 2005, but the high value of the resource continued to attract illegal prospecting operations. When investigators overlaid maps of the seismic anomalies with the locations marked on Mercer's topographical maps, a pattern emerged. The secret photography locations he had been sharing with young photographers coincided precisely with areas of suspected uranium deposits. They were using these kids as cover, Agent Reeves concluded. If anyone spotted them setting up seismic equipment or taking soil samples, they could claim they were just photography instructors showing students unique locations, and they were building a photographic record of the terrain for future reference, having the photographers do their documentation work for them, without realizing it. The theory explained much but still left the central question unanswered. What had happened to Lily Hartman in that canyon on June 7th? The breakthrough came in March 2019, nearly 6 years after Lily's disappearance, when the anonymous source who had sent the USB drive to Catherine Hartman made contact again. This time, the communication came in the form of an email sent from a temporary account to the tip line established for Lily's case. "I can't live with this anymore." The message read, "I was there that day. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Meet me at the Echo Pass trailhead, March 17, 10 a.m. Come alone or I won't show." The message was signed simply J. Detective Washburn recognized the risk, but also the opportunity. After consulting with FBI behavioral analysts, she determined that the most likely scenario was that Jay was a former associate of Mercer's who had been present when Lily died and was now experiencing guilt or fear as the investigation intensified. A plan was developed to make the meeting as safe as possible, while maximizing the chances that Jay would appear. Washburn would arrive alone as requested, but plainclothes officers would be positioned discreetly in the surrounding area. She would wear a concealed recording device, and a sniper team would maintain visual contact from an elevated position. On the morning of March 17, Washburn arrived at the Echo Pass trailhead at 9:45 a.m. The parking area was empty, except for her unmarked vehicle. The day was clear but cool, with a light breeze rustling through the sparse desert vegetation. She sat on a boulder near the trailhead marker, appearing relaxed, but maintaining constant awareness of her surroundings. At 10:08 a.m., a dust cloud appeared on the access road. A faded blue Toyota 4Runner with New Mexico plates pulled into the parking area and stopped about 50 feet from Washburn's position. For nearly 2 minutes, the driver remained inside, engine running. Finally, the door opened and a woman stepped out. She appeared to be in her late 30s, with shoulder-length brown hair partially hidden under a baseball cap. She wore hiking boots, jeans, and a flannel shirt over a tank top, typical outdoor attire for the region. Nothing about her appearance was particularly distinctive, except for a visible tension in her posture as she approached Washburn. "Detective?" she asked, stopping about 10 feet away. Washburn nodded. "And you are?" "Jesse Townsend. I worked with Ed Mercer. I was here that day, the day the Hartman girl died." Over the next hour, sitting on sun-warmed rocks at the trailhead, Jesse Townsend unraveled the mystery that had consumed nearly 6 years of investigation. Her account, recorded in full and later corroborated with physical evidence, painted a picture more complex and disturbing than even Washburn had anticipated. Townsend had been a geologist working for a private resource exploration company called Phoenix Mineral Ventures. The company operated in a legal gray area, using shell corporations and private contractors to conduct preliminary surveys for valuable mineral deposits, primarily uranium, in areas where official exploration permits would be difficult or impossible to obtain. "We weren't the decision makers," Townsend explained, her voice steady but her hands fidgeting constantly with a water bottle. "We were just the scouts. Find the deposits, map them, document everything, and pass the information up the chain. What happened after that wasn't our concern." Edward Mercer had been recruited as a contractor in 2011 because of his photography expertise and intimate knowledge of remote backcountry locations. His role was to document potential sites and occasionally provide cover for the exploration teams by posing as a photography guide. "The photography workshops were real, in a sense," Townsend continued. "Ed would take people out, teach them legitimate techniques, get them to photograph the areas we were interested in. Most of the time, they had no idea they were helping us build a database of uranium deposit locations. It was efficient." According to Townsend, the operation had run smoothly until early 2013, when competition from another resource company led to increased pressure for faster results. The Phoenix Mineral Ventures team began taking greater risks, conducting more invasive exploration techniques, including small test bores and seismic surveys, in areas where such activities would certainly be illegal if ukazed. "That spring, we found something big in the Echo Pass area," Townsend said, her voice dropping. "Preliminary readings suggested one of the richest uranium deposits in the region, running right through a network of unmapped slot canyons. Management wanted comprehensive documentation immediately, geological samples, structural analysis of the canyon walls, the works. We set up a base camp in one of the wider sections and started working. On June 17, 2013, Townsend and 2 other team members, a security contractor named Paul Winters and another geologist, David Keller, were collecting samples in the canyon network when Mercer unexpectedly appeared with Lily Hartman. "We weren't supposed to have anyone in that area that day," Townsend recalled, shaking her head. "Ed knew that. We had equipment set up, core samples laid out, obvious evidence of what we were doing. When I heard voices echoing through the canyon, I couldn't believe it. Then Ed rounds the corner with this teenage girl, both of them carrying cameras. What happened next was a cascade of poor decisions and escalating panic. Winters, the security contractor, immediately confronted Mercer, demanding to know why he had brought a civilian to an active site. Mercer claimed he had thought the team was working in a different section that day and had wanted to show Lily the unique light patterns in this particular canyon. The girl started asking questions right away, Townsend continued. She was smart. She recognized the equipment, realized we were doing some kind of geological survey. She asked if we had permits, if the Navajo Nation knew we were drilling in their canyon. Winters got aggressive, told her to hand over her camera. She refused. The situation deteriorated rapidly. Lily attempted to leave, stating that she wanted no part of whatever was happening. Winters blocked her path, insisting that she couldn't leave until they determined what to do. When she tried to push past him, he grabbed her arm. She pulled away, lost her footing on the uneven canyon floor, and fell backward. "It happened so fast," Townsend said, her voice cracking for the first time. Her head hit a rock outcropping. There was blood immediately, so much blood. Keller, who had some medical training, checked her, but he said she was gone. Cervical fracture, basilar skull fracture. Dead on impact. What followed was a panicked cover-up. The four of them argued about what to do, aware that reporting the incident would expose the illegal mining operation and potentially result in manslaughter charges at minimum. Ultimately, they decided to hide Lily's body deep in the canyon system, in a crevice that seemed unlikely to be discovered. Winters took her camera, said we needed to eliminate any evidence she'd been there with us. Mercer was in shock, I think, kept saying it wasn't supposed to happen like this, that she was just a kid who loved photography, but he helped move her body. We all did. In the aftermath, the team dispersed. The Echo Pass operation was immediately terminated, equipment removed, and all traces of their presence erased as thoroughly as possible. Phoenix Mineral Ventures transferred everyone involved to different projects in different states. Winters, the security contractor, allegedly received a substantial payment for risk management and disappeared completely. We thought it was over, Townsend said, staring out at the desert landscape. But Ed couldn't let it go. He started drinking heavily, talking about confessing. The company sent people to counsel him, remind him what was at stake. When they found Lily's backpack and the search intensified, we were all told to stay away from Arizona completely. Years passed. Townsend left Phoenix Mineral Ventures in 2015, haunted by what had happened but too afraid to come forward. Then, in early 2018, she received a package from Edward Mercer containing a USB drive with the cell phone video and a note explaining that he had been recording their approach to the canyon that day as reference footage for the company. He said he was going to send copies to the police and to Lily's mother. Townsend explained, said he couldn't live with it anymore. I begged him not to, told him we'd all go to prison. He agreed to wait, to give me time to figure something out. Then they arrested him anyway. Well, you know what happened next. After Mercer's suicide, Townsend had been the one to anonymously send the video to Lily Hartman, torn between fear of consequences and a growing need to provide some answers to a grieving mother. Now, nearly 6 years after Lily's death, she had finally chosen to come forward with the full story. Phoenix Mineral Ventures dissolved last year, she concluded. Most of the executives moved on to other companies. There's no one left to protect, and I can't keep carrying this. Lily deserves justice, even if it means I go to prison. Jessie Townsend was taken into custody that day. Her detailed confession led to the arrests of David Keller, 2 former executives of Phoenix Mineral Ventures, and eventually, after an international manhunt, Paul Winters, who had been living under an assumed identity in Costa Rica. The case against them was built on Townsend's testimony, supported by physical evidence recovered from the canyon and documentary evidence from company records obtained through search warrants. In exchange for her cooperation, Townsend received a reduced sentence of 8 years for involuntary manslaughter and conspiracy. For Lily Hartman, the resolution brought a measure of peace, but also fresh grief, as the full circumstances of her daughter's death became clear. In a statement following the sentencing hearing for Paul Winters in November 2019, she expressed both relief and lingering anger. Lily was brave until the end, she told reporters outside the courthouse. She questioned what she saw, stood her ground, tried to do the right thing. That's who she always was. These people let greed and fear take my daughter's life. And then they stole 6 years of truth from our family. No sentence can ever be enough for that. The case was officially closed, the legal proceedings complete. But in Page, Arizona, whispers about the Lily Hartman case continue. Some of those whispers centered around elements of the case that had never been fully explained, details that nagged at Detective Washburn even after her official involvement ended. The most persistent question concerned the camera memory card found clutched in Lily's skeletal hand. According to Jessie Townsend's account, Paul Winters had taken Lily's camera immediately after her fall, yet somehow Lily had possessed a memory card at the time of her death, one containing images of a figure approaching her in the canyon. When confronted with this discrepancy during his trial, Winters claimed that Lily must have had a spare card in her pocket that wasn't discovered during their hasty efforts to remove evidence. Townsend and Keller supported this explanation, though neither could specifically recall seeing such a card. The timing of the images on the card presented another puzzle. Forensic analysis had placed them at approximately 9:30 a.m. on June 17th. But according to Townsend's testimony, the fatal encounter hadn't occurred until nearly 11. Were the images from earlier that morning perhaps showing a first meeting with Mercer before they continued deeper into the canyon? Or was there another explanation entirely? These questions might have remained academic points of interest in a closed case file, if not for an unexpected development in February 2020, nearly 7 years after Lily's disappearance. A flash flood tore through the Echo Pass Canyon system following unusually heavy winter rains. The powerful surge of water reshaped portions of the narrow passageways, exposing areas that had previously been inaccessible. Among the debris washed into a collection basin at the canyon's mouth, a National Park Service ranger discovered a waterproof equipment case partially buried in silt. Inside was a Canon DSLR camera, heavily damaged but with its memory card intact. The serial number matched Lily Hartman's camera, reported missing since June. When forensic technicians recovered the images from the card, they revealed a sequence that contradicted key elements of the established narrative. The final photographs, time-stamped 11:42 a.m. on June 17, 2013, showed not a confrontation with Mercer and the exploration team, but something else entirely, a series of images documenting what appeared to be a meeting between Mercer, Winters, and two unidentified men in business attire, standing beside equipment cases marked with the Phoenix Mineral Ventures logo. The very last image, taken from what appeared to be a hiding spot behind a rock formation, captured Winters handing something to one of the suited men, an object that looked remarkably like a memory card. These photographs suggested a different scenario, that Lily had indeed encountered the exploration team earlier in the morning, as captured in the video Mercer recorded, but had then returned to the canyon later, perhaps to gather evidence of the illegal activity she had witnessed. The discovery prompted a reopening of the investigation. When confronted with the new evidence, Jessie Townsend admitted that her previous testimony had been partially fabricated. The encounter with Lily had occurred as described, but the timing and circumstances of her death had been altered to protect not just the exploration team, but their corporate clients. There were people there that day who were never mentioned in the investigation, Townsend revealed in a new deposition. Representatives from the company's primary investor, men with political connections, who couldn't afford to be linked to illegal uranium prospecting on Navajo land. When Lily showed up during their site visit, Winters wasn't just protecting our operation, he was protecting them. This revelation cast the case in an entirely new light. It suggested that Lily Hartman hadn't died in a panicked confrontation, but had been deliberately silenced after witnessing a meeting that implicated powerful individuals in illegal activities. It suggested that the memory card found in her hand hadn't been a spare, but had been placed there intentionally, perhaps by Mercer himself, in a moment of remorse or an attempt to preserve some evidence of what really happened. Most disturbing of all, it suggested that the investigation and subsequent prosecutions had been shaped to protect those same powerful interests, allowing lower-level participants to take the fall, while the true architects of the operation remained untouched. For Detective Eliza Washburn, who had dedicated years to uncovering the truth about Lily Hartman's death, this new information was both vindicating and devastating. The inconsistencies that had troubled her throughout the case now made sense, but the implications were far-reaching and potentially dangerous to pursue. As of September 2020, the reinvestigation continues, though now under the jurisdiction of a federal task force focusing on corruption and environmental crimes across tribal lands. The photographs from Lily's recovered camera have been entered into evidence, and new persons of interest, including former government officials and energy industry executives, have been identified but not yet named publicly. Catherine Hartman, now living in Colorado, maintains contact with investigators, but has expressed skepticism about whether the full truth will ever be acknowledged. "There are people who don't want this story told," she said during a recent interview, marking the 7th anniversary of her daughter's death. "People with the power to bury it again." But Lily found a way to speak from beyond the grave once already. Her truth is still out there waiting to be heard. In the labyrinthine slot canyons of northern Arizona, light and shadow play across the ancient sandstone walls, revealing and concealing in equal measure. Echo Pass itself has been closed to the public indefinitely, officially for safety reasons, following the flash flood, though some locals speculate the closure has more to do with the ongoing investigation. The canyon keeps its secrets, as it has for millions of years. But secrets, like bodies, have a way of surfacing, eventually carried to light by the inexorable forces of time, water, conscience, and a young woman's determination to expose the truth, even at the cost of her life. For now, Lily Hartman's story remains partially hidden in shadow, her full justice still pending. The final chapter has yet to be written.